Alberta has been facing a chronic infrastructure deficit for many years. This means that the province has not been investing enough in building and maintaining public infrastructure such as roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, and water systems. The lack of sufficient funding from the provincial government for municipal infrastructure projects has serious consequences for the environment, the economy, and the quality of life of Albertans. One of the environmental impacts of the infrastructure deficit is the increased greenhouse gas emissions from inefficient and outdated infrastructure. For example, old buildings and vehicles consume more energy and produce more emissions than newer and greener ones. Similarly, poorly maintained roads and bridges cause more traffic congestion and pollution than well-designed and maintained ones. Investing in green infrastructure such as renewable energy, public transit, and energy efficiency can help reduce Alberta's carbon footprint and mitigate climate change. Another environmental impact of the infrastructure deficit is the increased risk of natural disasters such as floods, droughts, wildfires, and landslides. These disasters can damage or destroy infrastructure and disrupt essential services such as water, electricity, and communication. They can also harm human health and safety, wildlife habitats, and natural resources. Investing in resilient infrastructure such as flood mitigation, fire prevention, and emergency management can help protect Alberta's communities and ecosystems from the effects of extreme weather events. The lack of sufficient funding from the provincial government for municipal infrastructure projects also affects the economic recovery and community building efforts of local governments. Municipalities are responsible for delivering many public services that rely on infrastructure such as education, health care, recreation, and social services. However, they have limited sources of revenue to fund these services and often depend on grants from the provincial government. When these grants are reduced or delayed, municipalities have to cut spending on infrastructure projects or raise taxes on their residents. This can have negative consequences for the economy and the society. For example, cutting spending on infrastructure projects can reduce employment opportunities, especially in the construction sector. It can also reduce the productivity and competitiveness of businesses that depend on reliable and modern infrastructure. Raising taxes on residents can reduce their disposable income and consumer spending, which can hurt local businesses and services. Investing in public infrastructure can stimulate economic growth, create jobs, attract investment, and improve living standards. Therefore, it is clear that the lack of sufficient funding from the provincial government for municipal infrastructure projects has a detrimental impact on the environment, the economy, and the society of Alberta. The province needs to address its infrastructure deficit by increasing its investment in public infrastructure that is green, resilient, and equitable. This will not only help Alberta recover from the COVID-19 pandemic but also prepare it for a more sustainable and prosperous future. Alberta is facing a serious infrastructure deficit that affects not only the quality of life of its residents, but also the health of its environment. Investing in infrastructure that supports green energy, public transit, waste management, and climate resilience can have significant environmental benefits for the province and the country. Green energy infrastructure can help Alberta transition from its reliance on fossil fuels to more sustainable sources of power, such as wind, solar, hydro, and geothermal. This can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, air pollution, and water consumption, while creating jobs and economic opportunities. According to a report by Clean Energy Canada, Alberta has the potential to generate 83% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2030. Public transit infrastructure can help reduce traffic congestion, fuel consumption, and vehicle emissions, while improving mobility and accessibility for Albertans. Public transit can also support urban densification and land use planning, which can prevent urban sprawl and preserve natural habitats. According to a study by the Pembina Institute, investing in public transit in Alberta could save 270 million litres of fuel and 560,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year by 2040. Waste management infrastructure can help Alberta divert more waste from landfills, which can reduce methane emissions, leachate contamination, and land use impacts. Waste management infrastructure can also promote waste reduction, reuse and recycling, which can conserve natural resources and energy. According to a report by Eunomia Research and Consulting, Alberta could create up to 9,000 jobs and $700 million in GDP by increasing its waste diversion rate to 65% by 2030. Climate resilience infrastructure can help Alberta adapt to the impacts of climate change, such as floods, droughts, wildfires and extreme weather events. Climate resilience infrastructure can include stormwater management systems, flood protection measures, wildfire prevention and mitigation strategies, and emergency response plans. According to a report by the Insurance Bureau of Canada, investing in climate resilience infrastructure could save $5.6 billion in avoided damages and economic losses for Alberta over the next 50 years. Investing in infrastructure that supports green energy, public transit, waste management and climate resilience aligns with the federal government's Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, which provides $3.65 billion to Alberta over 10 years for various infrastructure projects that strengthen the economy and build resilient communities. By leveraging this funding opportunity, Alberta can address its infrastructure deficit while enhancing its environmental performance and leadership.